Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of BEARSKIFILM. This week we're joined by a very special guest, Nick from Just Another Year Chicago Sports. Nick's got an awesome YouTube channel where they cover, all Chicago sports, Bears, Bulls, everything. And I got the honor of meeting him a couple weeks ago at Rizzo's Sports Bar for an event that he threw, and very knowledgeable, good, consistent content. Nick, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys. Or not meet you guys. We've obviously met already, Paul. But Dave, nice to meet you, and thanks for having me on the show. Obviously, a very tough loss yesterday. Don't even think. I don't understand how Matt Eberflus still has a job, but here we are. So happy to be here. I'm sure we're going to talk about it today.
Definitely. We've been talking about it, and we've kind of gotten to a point where it's like, all right, let's stop kicking this dead horse. But I mean, we go a year back and find videos, especially after the Broncos collapse, where we were like, should we fire this guy mid-season? And, it's just unfortunate that we've had to let it get to this point for, the majority of people to realize that this is not only not good enough, it's terrible. So, yeah, Dave, what are your, I'm gonna let you have at it because I know you got plenty to say, I'm sure.
I mean, I just have lots of ideas. I actually am much less talkative about this loss than I was last week, because I think last week was a little bit of that writing on the wall stuff that we have been talking about. And like, Nick, I don't know about you, I'm sure you with the channel, when we get things right, we have to kind of toot our own horn just to kind of be consistent about, tooting our own horn and stuff. And we've been on the Flus train for a while. So none of this was like surprising, but it just was really, really, it made us very angry because it was all avoidable. And I think the writing was on the wall a long time ago for people like me and Paulie who predict 9 and 8 seasons and, are a little bit more realistic about this kind of stuff. And Paulie and I we have literally for 10 years discussed our football philosophy and like cultivated it to what we expect and what we want out of like the Bears for the future. And at this point, I think we've both hit the point where it's championship or bust. And if you're not doing things to move towards that, then you're wasting time. And this is why this year, and we said this week 3, I feel like we're just regurgitating week 3. And then Jacksonville and Carolina kind of fooled us. And we've admitted that we got fooled really, really hard. And it sucks. But this is just us rewinding to week 3 when the team was what it was. And yeah, like you can't win with this. It's just your ceiling is so low. And yeah, you're not doing things like a serious organization towards championship contention. This is just more of the same, just another year, right? Like your channel says. But it sucks, but it is what it is. And yeah, I'm less emotional, but I'm much more, I don't know, I'm angry to the core on this one rather than being reactionary angry.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. The problem is that the last 4 years the last 4 coaches have all been kind of experimental, right? I mean, John Fox was coming off of, he was good in Carolina and Denver. It was like, you're okay. Like, you got the job done. You had good players. And then you come to Chicago. He's the only veteran head coach that we brought in since Lovie Smith. Everyone else has been a rookie. Mark Trestman, Canadian Football League. Matt Nagy, rookie coach. And then you bring in Eberflus, rookie coach as well. Some guys are just meant to be coordinators in this league, and I will pound the table for that Eberflus is that guy. Kind of like Vic Fangio when he went to Denver after Chicago, just didn't work out. It's just a frustrating standpoint because of the fact that Flus made a great defense, and you can see that they gave up on him. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit. But no offensive progression over 3 years. You've had 2 very good quarterbacks. And people are like, oh, Justin Fields wasn't good. Look what he does over in Pittsburgh. You give him a good head coach. He's winning ball games. Was he winning them pretty? No, he wasn't throwing for 300 yards, but he was getting the job done. He was doing everything that we needed. If Caleb Williams was just as fast as Justin Fields with also his scrambling ability, he would have gotten away from a lot more stuff yesterday. But this Bears team is just too good from a roster standpoint on paper to be this bad and losing games the way they're losing. Because the 4 wins this year have been great. I think we can all agree on that. 4 wins is to win more than last year. You're halfway to the win, more wins than you had last year. But overall, the team, it's just frustrating to watch because drops by Keenan Allen were unacceptable. No targets to Cole Kmet. There's just not communication amongst the coaches. And I actually was talking to a former Bear that's still in the NFL right now today. I was texting him, kind of what are you feeling from the coaching staff? What are you feeling from, what was it like when you were at the Bears? He goes, all I'm going to say is it's a top-down effort, and the effort from the top, especially the criticism that he gives to his coordinators, is not there. So kind of Eberflus, players are pointing that Eberflus is the problem. And that's where I'm no longer on the Eberflus train.
Before halftime, when they interviewed him real quick, or right after half, coming out of the half, and they're like, would you tell the team? He's like, I told them what the score was. I told them we had each other. I just had a flashback to Superbad where McLovin's in the hallway, and he's like, I told her what time it was. Like, this is what we have.
I've watched like halftime schematic type of interviews where Kevin O'Connell or Zach Taylor would be coming off the field and be like, yeah, we're not protecting the ball on third down. We're 3 for 11. And they just have these numbers off the top of their head. And he's just like, but we got each other, guys. And it's absolutely crazy that it reminds me of Matt Nagy and where are the whys and all that kind of stuff. It's what coaches say when they have nothing schematic to provide or nothing that's statistical to provide. They start getting into your emotions and start talking about that nonsense. 2 things that you were saying, Nick, like in the middle of that, like Paulie mentioned this to me earlier as well. Justin Fields probably would be better on this team right now than Caleb Williams, just purely off the athletic ability and what kind of line that they're providing. I'm not a big fan of Justin Fields over Caleb Williams at all, and it's been consistent. We think that Caleb Williams is the future and he's that good. But right now, the way that they're running this team, probably Justin Fields would be a better fit for this team than what you're seeing out of Caleb Williams and what they're doing for him to help him scheme him up and get players open and get your tight end involved and have Keenan Allen stop running 15-yard out routes and stuff like that, because that's just never been his game, and it's just not his game now, and I don't understand it. And then secondly,
the issue with Fields also fell a little bit more on the contractual timeline. Like you'd have to pay him at some point, and I think that was part of it. But if you just hone in on the one game, like if you just go, one game, I think Fields is way more used to avoiding that kind of pressure. And you saw Caleb Williams running out there like a chicken with his head cut off.
Yeah. Can I comment real quick on the Justin Fields contract situation?
Mm-hmm.
I think that we could have picked up his 5th-year option, which would only been, 14. I think it was 14.5 million, something like that. It was in that range. It was it was 16.5. I'm sorry. I would have rather have paid him. And, I'm happy with Caleb Williams. He is the future. We've seen those flashes. It's just that you need an offensive line for your quarterback. And we went out and did nothing with that. Nate Davis, obviously a giant bust. Coleman Shelton was good 4 years ago. It pretty much, you were better off keeping Cody Whitehair at that point, minus the contract situation, obviously. But Coleman Shelton, he's the worst. He's the worst center possible that we could have gotten. And also, where's Ryan Bates at this point?
He has arthritis, Nick. Leave him alone. He's an old man.
Hey, Ryan Bates does?
Oh, you didn't know that? That's when this is the big criticism for me. Ryan Poles, his shoulder and elbow issues are arthritic based, meaning that they've been going on for a long time, and Ryan Poles knew that. Ryan Bates knew that. So Ryan Poles knew that, and Ryan Bates' issues are arthritic. So he knew off of the medical staff, and he still went out and traded draft capital for him.
Isn't it amazing, though, that we said no to Larry Ogunjobi, who's doing very well in Pittsburgh now because of his injury status? And ever since then, Poles has just brought in these injury-riddled guys. Karan Amagaji, Ryan Bates now. Also, just come on, man.
There was like 5 or 6 Pro Bowl centers switching teams in the offseason this year, and we just picked up none of them. And we traded draft capital for Ryan Bates instead.
Also, I was a big proponent of trade back in the draft. Pick up a little bit more draft capital, probably go defensive end and get yourself a center in round 2 with that draft capital that you pick up.
But you could have, because Jackson Powers Johnson went 44th overall.
For me, it's like that Roma Dunze pick. As much as I want to like Roman, as much as I understand that that's a pick for the future, it just still seemed like, wait a second, wide receiver 3 here. Like, this isn't going to impact the football games this year as much as other moves that you could have made. And, I really didn't like it. And, not to say that I don't like Rome. I do like Rome, but I just feel just from a team building standpoint, they could have done things differently to be able to address obvious holes. And I know there's this whole whole talk about, well, you take the best player available at a certain point, sure. But I mean, when you have so many obvious holes, I think you need to get those fixed first, and that could benefit you a lot more. So I just thought that the draft was mishandled. At the end of the day, we have 2 offensive picks in the top 10. So like you expect to lean on an offense at some point. It's not happening. It's just not.
Yeah. And then real quick before I do have 2 really great, I think, good topic moving questions for Nick. I almost want to retitle this episode as "The Stench of McCaskey Interference is Returning." And me and Paulie get into arguments about this maybe 3 to 4 times a year, Nick. And I'm a big believer of ownership is top down. It is the thing that makes teams good or bad long term. Overall, Washington got rid of them. If you're a Cubs fan, or I don't know if you're a Sox or Cubs fan, but like when the Ricketts got a hold of the team and everything, whatever. I think the McCaskies, until they are gone or until they choose to sell, I think there's going to be similar, if not lingering issues like this. It's very rare that this type of pathetic ownership ends up working. And here's my experiment for you, and just in terms of thought experiment. You're talking about Eberflus is a first-year guy, and we rarely do this stuff. But the pattern, and I said this to Paulie as soon as Matt Eberflus got hired. As soon as he got hired, I said, you know what? He's going to get fired in 3 to 4 years, and you know what we're going to do? We're going to get an offensive whiz kid genius. Because if you just look at the pattern, George McCaskey is such a simpleton. He is such a moron that he just goes like, well, we have Lovey and he's consistent, but he's boring. And so now I want to be like the hot offensive thing. So I'm going to get the hottest offensive guy from Canada, and I'm going to get Mark Trestman. Oh, Mark Trestman made me look like a fool. So I'm going to get somebody consistent like Lovey, because at least with Lovey, we were consistent. And you go back to John Fox, and John Fox is too boring, and he's too paint by numbers and blah, blah, blah. And so you go to Matt Nagy, who's coaching Patrick Mahomes, and he's the hottest new thing. And now Matt Nagy blew up in my face. So I want to redo the Lovey thing again. So I'm going to get a disciple of Lovey and go with Matt Eberflus. And I guarantee you, we are going to hire either Ben Johnson, if we are willing to pay the money, which I don't believe, because McCaskies will never shell out that type of money. Or we're going to get like Lincoln Riley, or we're going to get some fucking moron hotshot offensive coordinator who goes into the meeting room with George, and George is just like, this guy makes me feel real smart. I'm going to hire this guy. And that's what you're going to see as the next step of this. And it's going to be just another year, recycle, rinse, repeat. Yeah, the pattern's been there for years.
I agree. I mean, I was excited about John Fox at first. And then I was like, wow, we have a bad roster. And this is when you see if a good coach is a good coach. He just didn't get it done. George McCaskey, I have select words from him because obviously I would like to work for the Bears one day, and it doesn't seem like that guy's letting go of the team at any point. So I have to watch kind of what I say about him. Definitely. I will say this though, is that George McCaskey hiring a consultant, and you hire your head coach before, or your general manager the same day as the head coach, and your general manager doesn't get to choose the head coach. That was a bit of a red flag. And Poles, if you listen to how he talks about Eberflus is my guy. We trust him. This and that. He doesn't go into detail about him. And sure, Flus is a great defensive-minded guy. But you can't have someone like that. And if you're an owner and you're hiring a consultant to choose your team for you, when you're the one that's worth billions of dollars, where you are paying the paychecks, $100 million payrolls, but you're making $1 billion a year off that because the fans keep showing up because you know you have a loyal fan base. It's the definition of insanity. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again and it's not going to work, that's pure insanity. I think George McCaskey needs to, he has generational wealth for the next 15 generations, probably forever. Let's just say that. And I think that George McCaskey does need to let go of this team. I think he still does put his hand where it's not asked. And if it was Ryan Poles' decision coming from Kansas City and learning what it's like to have a winning culture, Flus would have been canned last year. He did go on a hot streak at the end of the year. We almost made the playoffs. Great. Almost. Only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Doesn't matter anymore. George McCaskey needs to let go of this team. He needs to stop, give it to a group that actually wants to win. I like that you brought up the Ricketts, because I feel like the Ricketts got their win and they did what the McCaskies did. And now they're like, oh, well, Cubs fans are just going to show up no matter what every single time. Because look what happened with the team this year. I want George McCaskey to get rid of this team because when I met him at training camp, really nice guy. But nice guys don't always win football games. I want an owner to come in, clear house, know that this is a good roster. As an owner, sit down with the players and be like, what are you guys looking for? And build this thing correctly. And I'm not saying get rid of Ryan Poles. I think Ryan Poles has done a great job minus the offensive line, which is kind of crazy considering he was an offensive lineman. He's got one more draft in him, kind of like Ryan Pace. And if he gets the next draft right, having 4 picks in the first 3 rounds and goes very heavy on offensive linemen, I think he saves this thing. But George McCaskey's got to go. He's the main problem. He's the toxic person in this entire situation because it all starts at the top. And I believe once Virginia finally passes, which, isn't anytime soon, it looks like she just keeps going and going and going. It's not going to change, unfortunately. But I do think new leadership needs to come in.
See, and I mean, we've argued this back and forth, and I hate trying to defend the McCaskies in any way because they haven't earned it. They're not worth defending. But I do look at other organizations around the league. Jim Irsay is not a good owner, but it's not. But when they had Peyton Manning, Bill Polian was just fine. You know what I mean? And we could go on and on about examples, and David gives me examples of the other way where, once ownership does change, things change around. I always try and focus GM down. And to me, it's sad because it only comes down to a few plays and a few things that need to be different. But those are the things that can change with a better head coach. Those decisions during a game can win you a couple games and whatnot. And when things are going good, I don't see anybody praising McCaskey or praising Virginia or anything like that. And the fact of the matter is there are worse franchises out there that have had less success. I mean, we were in a Super Bowl in 2006. We were in an NFC championship in 2010. We did make a little playoff run in 2018. It's not saying much. It really isn't. However, I'm just saying that when those moments arise, I don't hear the praise for the ownership. And so to me, I just cut that out of the picture. I tend to focus more of GM and head coach down. And I think as long as you get the head coach and the quarterback right, those two things, I think you could definitely have success despite ownership. And so, I mean, it's unfortunately an uphill battle, but I think it's not going to change here anytime soon. So that's what we're going to have to do.
Me and Paulie could do a whole hour episode about this literal debate. But I think when you say it's GM down and it's coach down, I don't think you hire the right GM or the right coach if your mentality isn't correct. And at this point, you go watch the opening of Hard Knocks just from this year. It's a 2-minute intro about 40 years ago. And they just can't get it out of their head that this is some sort of legendary charter franchise with a rivalry to Green Bay. You've lost the last 10 straight games to Green Bay. This isn't a rivalry anymore. You're the bitch of the NFC North. And I'm sorry, and there's a few comments in here that we're not posting, but people saying Poles endorsed Eberflus and this and that. I can't prove it. I'll never be able to prove it, and I'm not going to ask Nick to comment on it because if he's being a little bit more careful with his words,
limited.
No, guys. I'm happy to comment on anything.
But
just put that out there.
if you, first of all, it's just a known fact that Eberflus was hired before Poles. It is a fact. It is not up for debate. It is cold hard fact that Eberflus was hired. Then they hired Poles 2 or 3 days later. Then they reconfirmed with Poles. And I'm sorry, go to a job interview for your dream job and say so we already hired your coach. What do you think about that, Ryan? Do you say no? What the fuck's the guy's going to say? Of course he's going to say no, great choice, George. It's the best choice that you could have ever seen. It's amazing. And then, yes, he doubled down last year. So I will give people that argument. But even then, the McCaskies have never fired a head coach in the middle of the season ever. And it's not because of some honor system that they have. It's not because they're just the most amazing, sweet, generous people and they always want to give people a choice. It's because they don't want to pay coaches that are not doing their job. It is a notorious fact of the McCaskies.
David, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I know we are limited on time. Nick, if you just want to give us your response, and I kind of want to just move on to the game itself.
No. I want to comment on this because it's Crimson You Dig is saying it. Dennis Moody saying, I'm looking at the chat right now. And the Bears did this entire thing half-assed backwards. They did. They hired their head coach first, then their GM, then their CEO. They should have hired their CEO because he would have had more say in the situation. Then you hire your GM because then he's going to be working well with Kevin Warren or whoever the CEO would have been. And then you hire your head coach. Because I guarantee you that Poles would have brought someone in from Kansas City, or he would have gone in a completely different direction versus Matt Eberflus. And I wish that the Bear, and you know what, Poles and Eberflus did have the same agent. They have connections. It doesn't mean that they're the same person on the same page because they coach two completely different teams. Look at the Chiefs. They built that offense for Patrick Mahomes. They built the line first. Then they brought in Mahomes. And sure, then you had a target in Tyreek Hill. You win 3 Super Bowls that way because now he has longevity and then they have a defense. I think that the Bears made the biggest mistake. Sure, you can, Dave, I'm agreeing with you. You know, the McCaskies would be the McCaskies. That's fine, but they should have hired a CEO first. That's my last comment on the subject. I know that, Paul, you want to move on to the game, but I think they should have done CEO first.
Because I found it interesting because I thought we were at a very critical point in the game where we were still keeping it somewhat close. And then you have this personal foul penalty on Gervon Dexter for the leverage. And that turned a field goal into a touchdown and just seemed like we just couldn't overcome that. Do you guys think that was the turning point in the game for the players where it's just like, damn it? Or where do you think, at what point did this all go sour? So sour.
I think it was the halftime run, right before halftime rushing touchdown. I really think it was. That point as fans, we're all like, well, Bears could have easily scored. They could have been winning after halftime. That was my nail in the coffin. The leveraging call. What are you going to do with Gervon Dexter? He's 6'6", 310. He's going to be able to go over guys. Guys are going to chop block him. It's going to cause leveraging calls. I'm agreeing with you, Paul. That was a huge changing point, but that run took the life out of that team. And they panned over to Matt Eberflus. He looked defeated after that. That was it for me.
I think the game was over when they stepped on the field.
That too.
Me and Paulie have been. I texted Paulie all Sunday morning and Saturday and Friday, just talking about how I have called this team dead 4 or 5 times, dead on arrival, and I was wrong every time. And most of the time when I thought something so egregious happened with the coaching and Eberflus fucking up, that this team would quit on him, and they never did. And for some reason, just in the back of my mind, I just said, this is different this time. For some reason, I feel like this is different. This has to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. But I just didn't have the balls to say it because they proved me wrong every time. And this time around I think in retrospect, you could have really seen the way that the players were responding in the media and calling him out and talking about it. And I think there's something to be said about the lack of communication and how they respond to adversity, where most teams that call each other out, it's almost like on purpose, right? I'm going to call you out. You're going to call me out. We're all going to respond together. This was one of those pathetic times where 3 days it was players calling people out, players calling coaches out. Then they're retracting these statements about how, well, I do agree with what I said still, but I just went around it the wrong way. And then I one of my least favorite arguments in the world is, well, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. Like, that's just, it's in life, in relationship, and it's not what you said, it's how you said it. Well, it's like, I'm just saying the thing. So you're not arguing with the point, you're arguing with how nicely I presented it. This is professional fucking football. It's a sport where guys bash each other's brains in. I don't give a shit about how you say it. Say the thing that needs to be said. And that's kind of where this week started, where I just thought it was the beginning of the end. I wish I was braver to say, how obvious it was. But it's just painfully obvious at this point. And I am 98% sure that Matt Eberflus will ride out till the end of the season. And I'm also 99.99% sure that it's the wrong choice. I think the best thing, the only logical thing to do, regardless of who takes over, because I'd rather watch the dumpster fire with Shane Waldron as the head coach, Eric Washington as the interim head coach. Anything would be better than this. And I just know it's not going to happen because of the same reasons we just kind of went over in the last part. I think the game was over the moment they stepped on the field. I think this team is just done with it. And it's only going to get worse from here, because you can even tell in Eberflus's comments towards the end of the week, leading up into the game, where now all of a sudden Eberflus is singing a different tune. Now everything is my fault. It only took you 4 years to realize that. Stop blaming your fucking players when you give them loafs and you know what I mean? Like, you're actually giving them fucking little tickets about, it's like a kindergarten classroom. Like, here's a ticket for fucking up. But I never make the mistake. And then all of a sudden, everybody tells him, you're a fucking asshole. You fucked up, but you don't say it. And now all of a sudden on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, he's going, I should have done that differently. Yeah, you should have been saying that 4 years ago, asshole.
And not only 4 years ago, I told David, as a head coach coming into this, like, you've been in football your whole life, right? Whether you've played, whether you've been an assistant coach or whatever, you've experienced so much situational football that all these situations should not be too big for you. And yet it seems like when Matt Eberflus is in the moment, these situations are too big for him. It seems like he's getting lost. And then he's coming back with like, okay, well, we'll have to take a look at that for me to give you an answer, honestly, in this and that. We're like, I'll tell you with like Tyreek Stevenson benching. You have a guy like Mike Singletary, and I'm not saying Mike Singletary achieved much as a head coach in this league, right? But I believe he was a real coach, because after the Vernon Davis game, he came out in the press conference and said, I don't want him. We can't win with him. Right away, you go out there and you make that statement. It doesn't take you till Wednesday or Thursday to be like, yeah, okay, I guess I hear what you're saying and this and that. And so to me, it's just, I think Eberflus is just incapable of having those moments, not be too big for him. And to me, it was damning during the Washington game, where after Caleb brought the team back 26 seconds to go, he goes, sits on the bench, doesn't expect to play another down unless it goes into overtime. Finally, he's able to take a breath. What does he have to do? Get up and pull his coach off the field? When's the last time you've seen Andy Reid waddle onto the field? Like, these guys are well aware of what their job is and what their duties are, and they don't get lost in the moment like that. And to me, that's really damning about Matt Eberflus.
I agree. No, I'm sorry. I didn't know if you wanted me to reply to that or not. I agree.
Yeah, Nick, for sure.
I agree that Matt Eberflus. So I know we're talking about the game now, and I just want to hit on a few things with the Arizona game. Is the Cardinals are a good team, no doubt about it. They're a young team. They do have a young head coach. It's his first year, and the Cardinals have had the hardest schedule in football the first 8 games. They were 4-4 through that time. They came in and showed, hey, Arizona is a pretty decent ball club in their house too. So you got to give hats off to them. I'm not saying either that we should have dominated the Cardinals, but we should have won that game. The Bears have a better defense. They have a better offensive roster, but they don't have a better offensive line. And we truly saw that against one of the worst pass rushes in football. So the Cardinals was not a cakewalk. And I knew walking into this game, everyone was like, oh, we got this. We're going to win the next 2 games, and we're going to enter Green Bay with the same record as them. I was like, I don't know. Like, obviously, I'm going to say the Bears are going to win every single time. That graphic of Mike Ditka when it's all Packers chosen, he's the one choosing the Bears. That's going to be me every single day and twice on Sunday. But this Bears, I knew that walking in this game, I was like, this is not going to be good, especially if the Bears walk in overconfident. Also missing Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon. Then we're missing Braxton Jones. You're missing your key players right there. Andrew Billings gets hurt. Now Darnell Wright has an MCL sprain. The Bears are in an ugly position right now. And with the game, I think they were underprepared. They did a great job holding Marvin Harrison, though. That was a big positive on the day. Only 3 catches. Not a bad job there. But Kyler Murray was able to do whatever he wanted. They had the rush attack going. James Conner was running all over us. And, I gotta take a little shot here at my guy, Gervon Dexter. First 4 games, 4 sacks. He was doing a fantastic job. He's been non-existent since. That was the first time I heard his name on that leveraging call. and then the pre-snap penalties too, that killed this team. Chris Morgan as the offensive line coach didn't come in with a good plan. Shane Waldron just looked defeated. Him and Caleb sitting on the sideline like two kids at dinner with parents nowadays with two iPads, not even talking to each other or looking at each other. Just not a good overall situation for the Bears in the Cardinals game. Carlos Santos, shout out to him for getting us our only points. Torrey Taylor did a great job. Roma Dunze did a great job. But 3 guys doesn't win you a ball game. You know what I mean? And the game plan against Arizona was just horrendous for the Chicago Bears, especially for Shane Waldron.
And Nick, when I mentioned real quick, when I mentioned moments that are too big for the head coach, I think in this game you could point to the very end of the game, where why would you still have Caleb Williams out there? I think anybody sitting on their couch, we don't pretend to be experts, but like that's obvious. How do you not put in Tyson Bagent out there? What?
Did you guys see? Sorry, Dave. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Nick.
Did you guys see though at halftime, Tyson Bagent had his helmet on, was stretching his legs and throwing. So they were like, you could go in at any moment. So maybe this Caleb injury was happening a little bit sooner. I don't think maybe people saw that, but I was like, watch Tyson Bagent. And during the stream, they zoomed in on Flus and you see Bagent throw his helmet on. And then when they zoomed out on the kickoff, Bagent's jumping up and down, staying loose, getting ready to go. And when Caleb usually jogs out on the field, he walked out on the field. I honestly was like, okay, I think Tyson Bagent might be going in. Something's going on here. Caleb could have an injury we don't know about, and we finally saw it after getting sacked 2 times in the last 2 games. But, Paul, I could not agree more. Why is your number 1 overall pick when you're down 20 out there? You are not winning this game. Throw Tyson out there and see what he can do, even if you lose that game. That was my rant.
Thank you.
So the my thing with that is, yes, it was sloppy, and at the end of the day, yes, there's lots of injuries, Braxton Jones, Kyler Gordon, all that stuff. But honestly, Nick, question, like with that performance, even with those injuries, you're not that bad of a team. I said to Paulie pre-show, who do you beat in the NFL with that type of preparedness and performance from last week or from yesterday? Like the Bears. I don't know if the Bears beat the Panthers. I don't know if the Bears beat the Saints. I don't know if the Bears beat the Giants or the Patriots with that level of performance last week. I don't think it's going to get much better moving up into the Patriots. But you're saying, like, yes, the Cardinals are good and they're well coached. I agree with you. I think they're underrated. I think they're better. I think Shane Steichen's pretty good. But that performance was so borderline sabotage, just borderline not a team that did not care to be there. And to me, I can't name a team that the Bears would have beaten on that day.
I'll go back to the Commanders game. The Commanders game, very similar game. If you look at the stats, you look how everyone played. The defense obviously played a lot better, but you're playing an injured Jaden Daniels. You're playing a healthy Kyler Murray. Imagine if Jaden Daniels was healthy. I think that we would have gotten crushed by the Commanders at that point. The Hail Mary obviously took a lot of life out of this team. And I think what the team needs to do is I would like to see a players only meeting. Talk about what you guys want out of your coaches and then go back to your coaches. You have these leadership committees on the defense, offense, and special teams. You go talk to Shane Waldron. You go talk to Eric Washington and Matty Eberflus, and you talk to Richard Hightower, and you'd be like, guys, this is what we're doing. I don't think special teams has anything to say, but, when Caleb comes out and says, Torrey Taylor, you're going to be kicking a lot less, that's not a good message because he's been kicking a ton. But he's been doing a great job. Anyone that says he wasn't worth the 4th-round pick, I think is still crazy. No, but last week, I really think the only team that you would have beat in the NFL, maybe, is the New England Patriots, who we ironically play.
Yeah,
but it's
and we're not even favored by that much against the Patriots. I think it's gonna be bad.
I think we're at a point now where I can't feel very comfortable about predicting any kind of a victory because I think we're more leaning on these teams beating themselves. You look at week 1 against the Titans, and that's a great example of a team beating themselves. If Will Levis doesn't throw that pick 6, we lose that game, right? So I think Bill Parcells said it more games are lost in the NFL that are won. which is a funny quote, but it's very true because it sucks because my whole philosophy about football is I would love to dominate by design. I don't see the Chiefs going into any week hoping they're going to win. No, they're expecting to win because they're that damn good. And so that's what I want out of my football team. And I think we're at the exact opposite right now, where we're just hoping these teams implode and we can maybe take advantage of it in order to sneak out a victory, which is not a good place to be.
If Nick has time to comment on this one, that was part of one of my things to write on is I think going back into the offseason and just talking about these coaches that were available. And Jim Harbaugh is the one that screams at me because I feel like that was the most realistic hire that the Bears could have probably had this offseason. I don't know how realistic it was just because Jim Harbaugh probably did want to go to California and have Justin Herbert and not have to deal with a rookie quarterback. But there is an identity. There is like two identities in LA with the Chargers, a team that never had identity, that never played a certain type of way. They run the fuck out of the ball. They're a top 5 defense. And Justin Herbert, as a guy who used to throw 50 passes a game, is now down to like 20 to 25. That's exactly what you're asking Caleb Williams to be and the type of team that you want him on. And there's just zero, and I mean zero, identity to this team. It used to be defense, and at this point, I wouldn't even say that. It's not running the ball. It's not Caleb Williams and shotguns and spreading the ball out and things like that. But it's I don't know where to go from here, and it's more a conversation. But the identity part is disgusting to me.
I was a big Dan Quinn fan. I really wanted Dan Quinn to come to Chicago. Experienced head coach, took a team to the Super Bowl, did great in Dallas. I mean, look at Dallas now without him. Dallas is, talk about no identity. Dallas is just a mess. You pay all those guys and they're just not even doing anything. I wanted Dan Quinn to come and not hang out. I wanted him to coach the Bears. I think he would have been a good choice because he has a defensive mind, but he also respects the offense, and he brought in Cliff Kingsbury. You know what I mean? I think that Dan Quinn would have been the great choice for this team, especially if the Bears wanted that defensive identity, but also keeping a guy that could, with experience and has a ton of networking, to bring in a top guy. Matt Eberflus can't establish and identify talent anywhere, it feels, except a defensive perspective. But from a coaching perspective, Shane Waldron, you chose him over Cliff Kingsbury, the guy that was Caleb Williams' offensive coordinator. Come on. It was a no-brainer, and Cliff Kingsbury wanted to come here. That's what I find most crazy.
Because it creates a threat. And we talked about this during the offseason where we said, hey, you get another guy in here. What you need is another guy on the offense that's pretty much a head coach in his own way. Because you're not involved in the offense, right? You're defensive focused. So you're really trusting Shane Waldron to do a lot right now. But you could trust a guy that has more experience. But what does that do? That creates a threat. So in a situation like right now, Matt Eberflus is getting fired because you do have somebody that can replace him that's adequate in Cliff Kingsbury, whereas Shane Waldron isn't that. So now we're looking at it as like, okay, we're handicapped with this guy till the end of the year. And I think that might have been part of the thought process behind that decision making. But at the same time, you should not be threatened by your offensive coordinator taking your job if you're a damn good coach. Right.
Yeah, or if you're just objectivist to win.
Right.
Matt Eberflus is not an alpha. I think it sounds like that's kind of the message. The guy has no cojones. Like, he has no confidence in himself.
It's not so much that. It's like, I don't even want to get into that because there's plenty of like, there's plenty of like under the radar type of coaches that don't really make a bunch of noise, but they at least feel comfortable in their decision making or their schemes that they don't have to make a lot of noise. Lovie Smith and Tony Dungy, and I feel like those are guys from the past. But like Mike Tomlin doesn't do a lot of talking; he just does. He just acts. John Harbaugh. I'm sorry, I always get him confused. John Harbaugh on the Ravens. He doesn't do a lot of talking. He just does. He's just a great manager. He's a great CEO type. And Matt Eberflus never demonstrated any of those skills, but yet he kind of got that opportunity to do it again. And we never really wanted him back to begin with, but it is what it is.
Dan Quinn was a guy that I considered during the offseason as well, just due to his head coaching experience.
He's Super Bowl, he went up 28-3. That's also a Tom Brady fluke.
Also, I just want to kind of take a couple steps back. I know we mentioned John Fox a couple times. I actually view John Fox's tenure here with the Bears as a success. I thought this man went from a Super Bowl roster. He was just in a Super Bowl, and they lost to the Seahawks. They got embarrassed by them, and I think he was fed up with Peyton Manning and not being able to have his type of offense and his control over the entire team as head coach. But this man took a job here, knowing that his expectation is just to overturn the roster in 3 years, and he did just that and left. And I kind of have a lot of respect for that because I don't think he was ever expecting to win here. I don't think that was the expectation for him or what we were asking him to do. What he did do was overturn this roster. He did leave behind a very good defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio here when he left, and he set this team up for a roster that made a run in 2018. So I don't look at the John Fox thing so much as a failure but I don't know. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. But there is something to being said with having an experienced guy come in here and having the staff underneath him that's also experienced, instead of trying this crapshoot thing where we're taking like Luke Getsy, who's never been an offensive coordinator, and giving him an opportunity.
Twice in the last 10 months, by the way.
Right. Nick, I've asked this over and over, like, who's got the worst coaching staff in the NFC North? And for the people that were not picking the Bears, it's like, you understand we replaced both our coordinators. Anybody could have had Shane Waldron if he's all that great. And
you know what I mean? Him.
Right.
And I don't understand what the Bears' obsession is. Like, we're going to find the next best great thing. No, go find the great thing and get it for your roster. You're the third biggest market in the NFL. And, 39% of tickets for the Arizona game was bought by Illinois natives. I mean, your team just travels so well and you have such a big fan base. Give them a winner. Don't give them an experiment. We're tired of experiments. We want something now. And, Bill Belichick's out there. I don't know if I would want him, but he is out there.
Stefanski.
So I have that. You're kind of leading me into the two parts of. I just have questions for Nick while we have him. I'm going to start with the easy one. What do you think? I guess we have to go backwards with this. Coaching choices, and what do you think the realistic next hire is? Because I think we both agree at this point, Matt Eberflus is out.
Matt Eberflus is out. I mean, you never won a football game on a Sunday, which 90% of your games are played on Sunday. I'm sorry, road games. Flus does have that 9-game home winning streak. He changed the culture of winning in Chicago because Chicago was not winning a lot of ball games before he came to Chicago at home, which is where you should win. Not saying Matt Eberflus is going to stay because of that reason. You're going to go 500 every single year unless you get 9 home games, then you'll be 9-8. The Bears need to find a way to bring in an experienced head coach with a proven record and win. A lot of people want Ben Johnson, and Dave, you're like, we're not going to pay him. There's no way. He's going to want $15 million plus.
20
million plus. I mean, no doubt about it. But also, you have a stacked, and I mean stacked, offense over in Detroit. And it only got better when David Montgomery went over there. Missed that guy every single day. If we bring in Ben Johnson, it's another experiment that makes me super nervous. And Ben Johnson would have to bring all of Detroit's assistants with him for there to be a shot. Because Dan Campbell is a great head coach. He respects his coordinators, and his coordinators lead off of his example. If I were to go out and get a head coach right now from any team that's anyone with experience, I'm looking at Cliff Kingsbury because he has coached in this league. He has won in this league. He went back to college. He learned a thing or two. He got the job done. Second guy I'm looking at is Brian Flores. Experienced head coach, got the job done in Miami. Obviously, the whole thing went down. Goes to Minnesota. You want a defensive winning head coach. Brian Flores is your guy. He knows the division. He understands the Vikings. He understands every single team that he's gone against, and he's proven that he can keep up with all of them. I mean, the Minnesota game with Detroit went down to the wire. The Green Bay game with Minnesota, look what happened there. This guy leads by example. People are going to want to play for him. This defense is so young and good and under contract that if you bring in a guy like Brian Flores who shows emotion on the field, who gets fired up, who likes his players, Brian Flores is by far my number one right now if we go with experience. Then it's Cliff Kingsbury because he has a connection with Caleb Williams. Cliff Kingsbury is obviously having success. He knows how to get the job done. We're seeing that with Jaden Daniels. We saw that with Kyler Murray. Those are my two guys. But if you go with the experiment, it's Ben Johnson.
It's funny because David last week said that Matt Eberflus is the 6th best head coach in the NFC North.
He is. He is the 6th. Dave, I could not agree more with you. I really agree with you there.
Yeah. My number one choice with a bullet is Kevin Stefanski. And then I want Ben Johnson as my experiment. And then defensive coordinators, I think there's just so many decent ones that you could probably pick up right now. If you could get Mike Vrabel or even Robert Saleh as a defensive coordinator.
Saleh signed with the Packers, didn't he?
He's a
consultant.
Okay.
Vrabel's a consultant with Cleveland too. See how that worked out. So I think my number one with a bullet is you get Kevin Stefanski as your head coach, and you bring along Mike Vrabel. They already have that connection in Cleveland. You bring in Mike Vrabel as a defensive coordinator. I think that's the only issue I have with that is we go back to the McCaskey interference. I think that's too much straightforward opinions and too many men. I don't know how to explain it other than a man's opinion in front of George.
David,
and
you
George
had a
would feel
second
very
point?
threatened. I feel George would feel very threatened and scared by Mike Vrabel and Kevin Stefanski in a room, period. Mind you, being a head coach.
Good.
My second question, good, I agree. But we also had Bruce Arians in the room, and we said no thank you. We also had
Chris Ballard also told you he'd get rid of Jay Cutler right away, and you're like, get out of here.
So, that's the McCaskey curse.
I'm a Cutler guy. Like, I think if Jay Cutler would have had...
No, we're just giving you examples of like how George feels threatened and just says no thanks by people who
Cutler's the best quarterback we've had, hands down.
We talk about guys with small things. George McCaskey probably has a very, very tiny tic-tac. Just putting that out there.
You're not getting hired by the McCaskies, buddy.
We're talking about Tic Tacs, literal Tic Tacs.
We're talking about Tic Tacs.
Oh, those adorable little boxes.
The candy.
That's what
the
you're
candy.
talking about. Yeah. The Tic Tacs. So this is my second part, and then this is a 2-part question. I feel like Ryan Poles. Sorry,
I love it. Keep it coming.
Ryan Poles has, and I'm a fan. Don't get me wrong, but we put a video out probably 4 months ago, where I started being dubious about the Ryan Poles era, and minus the one trade, it's not been a great track record. What is the new timetable? Because this is me and Paulie have had this frustration with the Bears is that they keep kind of just pushing the buck or passing the buck and kind of pushing the timetable based on a new thing. I don't see the Washington Commanders doing a timetable. I don't see the Texans doing a timetable. We need an extra year or two of development or more draft picks or whatever. No, we're fucking winning now, and this is how we're going to do it. And then so that's my question is, what is the Bears' new timetable in your opinion after this year? And 2, I guess it's a retrospective
timetable for what? For Ryan Pace,
for Ryan Poles to keep his job, and for what is our new timetable of success? Because what are we talking about here? Are we going to say next year we're hiring a new coach, instant success, which is what it should be in my opinion? And then the second one is people kept talking about Ryan Poles always not doing things because he doesn't want to get fired. Because in my mind, every GM gets 2 coaches and 2 quarterbacks. That's the basic timeline of a GM if they're doing a half decent job. Yes, you have your Mark Trestmans and your who was after Phil Emery? Irrelevant.
Whatever.
Yeah, those guys get fired instantly together because they're doing such a bad job. Did Ryan Poles extend his life as a GM by keeping Matt Eberflus, or did he dig more of a grave? Because that was my opinion, is if you had hired a coach last year and you had restarted that timetable for yourself by hiring a new coach, at least you could say you're trying. You're doing something innovative. You're putting something out there. Did he shorten his timetable by keeping Eberflus? Because in my mind, he did. Now it's instant. If the next guy doesn't work out, you're fucked. And then what is your new timetable?
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do so I can say whatever I want. I'm going to put on my really big sunglasses so they can't identify me. So
Nice.
we're going to put these on right now because we're
Jim
going to go
McMahon looking ass.
we're going to go into Terminator mode right now.
Jim McMahon looking ass. Yeah.
Always, man. We got the ski goggles on right now. So in regards to your first question, the timetables, was that your first question? Or
yeah. It's like a two-parter. It's like an all-in-one.
So Ryan Poles bought himself time by drafting Caleb Williams. I don't think keeping Matt Eberflus does anything. You said it best. You get 2 quarterbacks, you get 2 head coaches. Well, you got 2 quarterbacks now. Actually, really 3 because you had Tyson Bagent in there at one point, but not by choice. Ryan Poles bought himself 1 more season. That's it. It's a win now moment. It's next year. It's win or you're gone. There's no doubt about it. You have to go out. You have to go and get offensive linemen. You have to protect your quarterback, your second quarterback. People need to look at the situation. And I guarantee you Poles in his meetings was like, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get every weapon possible for Caleb. We're going to do everything. We're going to get everything across the board so people can evaluate him. The league can watch, and we're going to see how Flus does. We're going to see how Shane does. If they, shit the bed, they got 1 more chance. Okay. So I think that the Bears, Ryan Poles has 1 more year in him in regards to winning and everything else. The Commanders have done it. They have won right away by getting a new head coach. That example right there, number 1 versus number 2 quarterback, showed the McCaskies and showed Kevin Warren, you have 1 more chance. That's it. So I got Ryan Poles 1 more year because he gets 1 more head coach. Here's my issue, though, is that the Bears could then go and let's say they don't win. They bring in Brian Flores. They bring in Cliff Kingsbury, Ben Johnson, Vrabel, anybody along the lines that we've talked about, and they don't win, fire everybody. It's literally clear house, start it new, because this roster is still an average of 25 and a half years old. It's a very young roster. It gets things done. They have so much untapped potential if they can stay healthy. That's another problem. There's so many factors that's keeping Ryan Poles here. Poles has done a good job. The Nate Davis signing, that was not good. The Chase Claypool trade, that was not good. Poles was also a rookie GM, but you got to look at everything else that he's done. He's brought in Caleb Williams, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, re-signed Cole Kmet, brought in DeAndre Swift. You go to the defensive side of the ball, Andrew Billings, Javon Dexter, Montez Sweat, Jarrell Taylor,
There's enough good to point at for sure.
There's way more. The good definitely outweighs the bad from a roster perspective. But we talked about this in the very beginning of the show, is that Poles did not have a say in this situation for the head coach. If it would have been his first head coach and he got all this talent and it's still in this situation, then maybe it would be this year. But I think he does have 1 more head coach in him. That's all I got for Poles. I'm not losing faith in him, but if they crap the bed again next year, then it's time to can Poles.
Nick, I know you're limited on time. One of the things that we mentioned last week was, David said something along the lines of, when you go and face the Packers, like Matt LaFleur is stealing your lunch. And I brought up, hey, that Matt Eberflus and Matt LaFleur got together at that basketball game during the offseason. Eberflus was the one that bought those tickets. You know what I mean? Like he paid for all that. That's on him. And I mentioned that to one of my friends yesterday that was over at my house. And he's like, you think he sat next to him going, come on, man, give me 1 of your plays. Give me 1 of your plays. And Matt LaFleur was like, all right, try this one. Backup center, fullback dive.
Yeah, and Matt LaFleur definitely was sitting at home on his couch going, this idiot.
This little bitch.
So,
I like that Flus, I like the persona. I like everything that he's done from a picture perspective, but on the field, he's not doing anything right. If it would have been the other way around and LaFleur invited him, that's different. But LaFleur is like, I don't need you, man. I'm winning games. I know how to build rosters. I'm an alpha in this room right now. And on that court, I guarantee you was it a Bucks game or I think it was a
Bucks game.
I think it was a Bucks game, yeah.
You know how they always have whatever players in attendance do a beer chug? Well, if Matt LaFleur and Matt Eberflus would have done a beer chug, Flus would have snotted it out of his nose, and LaFleur would have been like, give me another one. That's exactly the mentality he has.
Nick, I have like 2 more funny observations if you got a sec. So
I got time.
I think it would be hilarious if Ben Johnson came here and he got stuck back with DeAndre Swift, by the way. If you think
I
about
would
the
love it.
timeline of events, because 2 years ago, Ben Johnson was like, let's get rid of DeAndre Swift. Let's get David Montgomery in here with Jahmyr Gibbs. And then he comes back and he's like,
That's funny, David.
guy is here again. God damn it. Can we get rid of this fucking guy? Funny observation if that happened. And then he'd be like, fuck, I got this guy again. Number 2, and this is actually a point Nick can comment on other than a stupid joke. Here is why part of what Nick's belief system and mine too is to do these things top to bottom and not ass backwards and all these things. And people keep, I don't know who's fighting the fight or the good fight of keeping Matt Eberflus around at this point other than the McCaskies, because I'm going to be the guy that's always going to say McCaskey interference. This is where Paulie can argue about how it's not that important. It fucking is, because here's why it's important to fire this guy in the middle of the season. By game 10, good coaches are looking for their next job. Even if they're still coaching their current team, they're looking into the future going, I can go somewhere. And you need to know that A, that job is available. B, you start sending out your little sparrows, you start sending out your little feelers of what's the vibe there, what's the conversations like. And then C, you need to present a package to these coaches as to why your job is attractive. You need to show that your draft picks, you can do what you want with them, new head coach. Because Ryan Poles, if he hires a guy halfway through the summer and he drafts the guys that he had on his big board, we're in the same fucking problem again. Kevin Stefanski's coming in here. Ben Johnson's coming in here. And Ryan Poles, guess what he drafted? A cornerback, a wide receiver for the future, and a fucking defensive end. And he's piecemealing some offensive linemen. I want Jim Harbaugh in here to make some choices, saying, I like this offensive, I like this guard. I don't care if I have to take him at 10. This is the guard I fucking want. This is why, to me, if you don't fire Flus by week 10, it's almost an indictment on next season already. It a little bit is, because you are not future-proofing. You are not future planning. You are not presenting the best package for whoever it is. And me and Paulie made this comment and this joke last week when we were freaking out. We did a 2-hour episode when Justin Fields got hurt last year, and then Ryan Poles after the fact said we were scouting quarterbacks the moment he got hurt. Yep. You needed to be scouting head coaches the moment Eberflus fucked up a Hail Mary.
Yep.
Because if you're not scouting next year's head coaching opportunities, Stefanski's and Vrabel's and Belichick's and Johnson's already, you might as well kind of pack it in next year. And that's why I say it is important. Fire Flus now. Present the best package available to Stefanski and Ben Johnson. We have 3 picks in the top 55. Do what you need to do with those.
I couldn't agree more with you. And what's nice, and Dave, you hit the nail on the head so well, is that coaches that could have this job next year, that could be attracted to it, should be scouting it. Well, guess what? We played the Washington Commanders. Cliff Kingsbury was on that sideline. He saw everything that's wrong with this team. He's learning from Dan Quinn. He's learned at USC. That's why I think Cliff Kingsbury would be a huge person to have on this team. We play the Lions twice this year, too. Ben Johnson gets to see what this team is all about. He's going to see, okay, this is what can fix, this is what we can do. You send that message. I mean, Eric Washington is not ready to be a head coach in the NFL. If Eric Washington becomes the head coach of the Chicago Bears in interim, which that's wishful thinking. That's a Christmas list item for me. If he were to get it, let's say, and he goes out and wins, you're still not making him the head coach. You can't do an Antonio Pierce experiment like the Raiders did, because look how it turned out. The Bears should also be seeing how other teams are managing everything. And I guarantee you, because there hasn't been a lot of reports today out of Hallis Hall, we're going to get all the reports tomorrow. If I'm the Chicago Bears, I'm Kevin Warren, I'm going, okay, this is who we have on the opposite sideline the rest of the season, Dave, like you're saying. And Paul, please disagree with me. Guys, disagree with me if you feel different about it. Kevin Warren should be sitting in the box and taking notes, what he's seeing out of the coordinators, exactly what they're doing every single game from here on out. Finding out exactly, because we have some tough matchups coming up here. Should be looking at the 49ers coming up, because if the 49ers don't do anything this year, they're firing everybody. That's another potential head coach. You know, what was it? Kyle Shanahan over in San Francisco.
Oh, that's a wet dream. But yeah, I don't
That's
think
a
they're
wet-
going to get rid of him.
Oh,
But
yeah,
here's the
no.
thing.
He needs
Wait,
more
Let
failure.
me make an
Yeah, I would
argument.
love it.
Let me make an argument here. Is that you've now gone to the Super Bowl?
I'm gonna have to turn my camera off. Give me a second.
With the way the Niners have been, they get to that point and then they can't finish. Okay. The Niners are a respectful organization. They're losing a lot of their guys, the big contracts coming up. On top of it, too, they're also going to be losing. If they don't win, if they do not win the Super Bowl this year, they're going to clean house because clearly it's not working.
That would be great.
I really do. That would be great for everybody because the Bears better be calling Kyle Shanahan and be like, you are coming to Chicago.
100%.
You are going to be the Bears head coach.
And
I could see that happening, especially if they don't win this year and how they've looked because they got to pay Brock Purdy. George Kittle's getting older. Their entire offensive line is getting older. They have a ton of money tied up in the Niners. And if they're not performing, Christian McCaffrey isn't doing anything right now either. He's injured. He's got the Madden curse. Would absolutely love if the Niners blow that thing up. The Bears better be calling them, being like, listen, we're young. We got a good cap space. This is what you can do. Pipe dream.
And so,
but
it
could
is a pipe dream because I do think that they would need one more year of failure on top of this year in order to make that move. I think it would be a little bit premature. However, if they did, I brought up this point all the time that it took Andy Reid 20 years to win a Super Bowl. He was fired from the Eagles at one point, right? Give me that guy. Like, give me the guy that hands down, no questions asked, is a great head coach, despite of his resume and despite of his success. Like Doug Peterson has a Super Bowl. He's not a good head coach. He's crap. Sometimes those things don't go hand in hand. Sometimes you get lucky and you're able to get that trophy and add it onto your resume. Give me the guy that I test, hands down, you just know is a great coach and experience. And there's nobody out there that I would want more than Kyle Shanahan.
I mean, Paulie's laughing the whole time because Nick's literally. I need a cigarette after this because I've been saying it for like
David's
10
been
weeks
talking about how this is his fantasy.
Yeah, dude, I need a cigarette after that because I've been saying for like 10 weeks after the reports came out in the preseason that San Francisco ownership groups are getting frustrated with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, and I was just like, I've been, as much as I'm rooting for Bears victories every week, I'm rooting for 49ers losses every week because if the McCaskies don't just write a blank check to Kyle Shanahan, I mean, you just don't be a football fan anymore because there's nothing more in the world that I've wanted in the last 10 weeks than a Kyle Shanahan, Caleb Williams marriage.
And remember, Kyle Shanahan was not far down the road from Caleb at USC. So he's seen him. He knows what the kid can do. He looks at this roster. Any head coach is going to want to come to Chicago with the roster, how young they are, how proven, how many flashes of greatness they've had. But they're like, I could be that guy to finally get them over the finish line. That's I would love to see it.
I see the comments and I agree as how much unlikely it is, but I think me and Nick are just a little bit more. That's that, like, it's not impossible.
Remember this moment. If it happens,
it will go down.
Go back, put it on Twitter, and be like, after that Cardinals loss.
This might have been Nick. It might have not been Nick. We're not sure because of the glasses.
I got the Terminator.
Maybe it was Nick saying this, but it was said.
I'm a ski today, but roadie ski. That's what my last name is. I'm Nick Ski. Nick Ski. I'm in here today.
No, we were. I've been on that, but that's why I think part of that is to wrap it up, and it's so vital to fire this guy. And I listened to this. I had plenty of time on my hands. I listened about 7 hours of Bears podcast today, and it was just absolute pain. Existence is pain, Jerry. If you're a Rick and Morty fan, I'm just a fucking Meeseeks right now. Just existence is pain. And if you do the same stuff as a franchise that you've been doing for 50 years, because the Bears have these weird moral codes about not firing coaches, then you've got to expect the same results. You've got to, because if you're just going to rock Matt Eberflus until week 17, and I'm sorry, go look at any year in NFL history. Week 16, week 17, you're talking about coaches that are good off of bad teams or bad teams that have good coaches. These coaches are already interviewing week 16, week 17. Guys who are Super Bowl contending coaches, they're interviewing during Super Bowl week. while their team is in the Pro Bowl. Like, this is not a fucking game, man. Like, you can't rock this guy until week 17 and then hope, because we don't want to hurt Matt's feelings. This is a cold business. And that's why we said we wanted him gone last year. You know what? Thanks, Matt. You got us through the tough times. You got us through 2 seasons of shit. Here's your fucking millions of dollars. See you the fuck later. And bring in Mike Vrabel, bring in Ben Johnson, bring in whoever else. It's a cold, hard business. It's a results-based business. So I don't give a shit, especially on this year, to hold on to Flus for any extra time. Fire him next week. Let the dumpster fire happen. Give the next coach and Eric Washington some fucking experience, and then hire whoever the fuck you're going to hire. Because if the Niners are 6-10 by the end of the season by some miracle, you need to be interviewing Kyle Shanahan week 16 saying, whenever you're done, it's a blank check.
Here's, you know what? I'm looking at the comments. Shout out to the chat, by the way. Chat's been awesome tonight. Just looking over here.
Oh yeah.
I want to say this. Let's get realistic. I know we barely talked about the Arizona game, by the way. Sorry, Paul. But, I'm happy I stuck around because I do have a show in 3 minutes after.
No, I appreciate you so much, man.
Here's what I want to say. Pipe dream, Kyle Shanahan. That's the one right there. That is the absolute pipe dream. It's available. You make that happen. But looking at the chat and kind of talking this through, Brian Flores is my guy. The reason why, he's young. He gets this league. He can make this defense do anything that he wants them to do. And Brian Flores knows a ton of people around the league. He knows a ton of people in Miami. He knows the guys from Miami. He'd bring in Robert Saleh from the Jets as his defensive coordinator. This Bears team would be in a great position there. I think that's the most likely one, is Brian Flores coming to the Chicago Bears. I would love to see it because I know Minnesota. I'm on another show called Roundtable, and they don't want to get rid of that guy, but they know he's going to a head coaching spot next year. The number one spot for teams to come to is definitely going to be the Chicago Bears.
I'm going to counter you, Nick, with I'm 100% in on Stefanski.
And you know what? Maybe
okay, I wouldn't mind it though.
Yeah.
No.
I know. I'm with you. I'm with you on both. I just mean
Maybe
more, and I think we're in the boat of established NFL coaches and no Lincoln Rileys, no Ben Johnsons, because this
Paul
team is
said it best.
ready to go.
Paul said it best. Andy Reid didn't win a Super Bowl for 20 years. He was fired at one point. What was Brian Flores? He was fired. Andy Reid went to Kansas City, though, right away. They picked him up. Great pickup by them. But Brian Flores is literally sitting there waiting for the opportunity again, proven winner, and he can get the job done. So I'm starting to get on the Brian Flores train right now.
And we're going to let you go. So maybe Nick or maybe not Nick from Just Another Year, regardless, whoever you are, everybody definitely check out Just Another Year Chicago Sports. That YouTube channel is awesome, and there's a lot of content there, and we appreciate your time. We appreciate you sticking around till the very last second. Thank you so much, Nick. I know you have other things to do, so we're going to let you go. David, I just want to kind of continue this a little bit more if we can, just because the chat is so engaged and everything like that. Ben Johnson may be the next Kyle Shanahan, though. That's where you're looking at it, and that's been my thing, where it's like Kyle Shanahan was under Dan Quinn in Atlanta. They went to a Super Bowl. They lost. When Kyle Shanahan left and went to the 49ers, a lot of that success left with him. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping with Ben Johnson. And I know it is literally the only guy out there that is an unexperienced head coach who I would want to take a shot at, just because there's that feeling of, hey, he may be for real. But, Nick brought up some really good points where it's like, yeah, but the roster's there too, right? So yep.
I'm with you on like a comment like this, right? From Samo, not on board with Brian Flores development to Caleb. And that's kind of where I'm at. And not because of the Brian Flores thing. I think he's going to be a great defensive coordinator. I think he's going to be in the line of Steve Spagnuolo on the Chiefs. I think Brian Flores will be a defensive coordinator for the next 10 to 15 years. I don't think he will ever really get another head coaching opportunity. And if it is, it's not going to be with a long leash because of how bad the Miami situation did go. But the importance of pairing Caleb with the next smartest guy in the room, and not the way that we always talk about Bears hiring the smartest guys in the room. He needs to legitimately be the smartest coordinator in the room. So Ben Johnson is like my second favorite choice. I do want Kevin Stefanski because of how established he is in an NFL team, 2-time head coach of the year. right? Like, I think people forget this because Cleveland's so bad.
He
The guy
turned the
won
Browns
Coach of
around
the Year twice,
in
2 times
Cleveland.
in
In
Cleveland, for
Cleveland.
God's sake. This guy is no joke. So when you hire Kevin Stefanski, you're hiring a guy who's taking Caleb under his wing. Ben Johnson might be, hey, dude, we're going to figure this out together type of situation, which I'm new at this. You're new at this. Let's do this together. I don't know if that's the best thing for the Bears. I don't know if that's the best thing for Caleb. But what I do know is Kevin Stefanski doing what he's done with Jameis Winston, with Joe Flacco, with Deshaun Watson, with other players. That dude would be fucking incredible here. And whoever you can hire as a defense coordinator, I know Mike Vrabel's more of a 3-4 guy. Vrabel will definitely be easily able to work with what he's got here in Chicago as a 4-3 defensive coordinator. You get Stefanski and Vrabel, you honestly, I'm back in next year. I'm back in with positivity and whatever. Next year, if we come in with Lincoln Riley or Bill Belichick for some reason or anything less than that, oof. If you bring in Ben Johnson, I'd love to comment on this, Prometheus. If you bring in Ben Johnson as your OC, whoever is more than likely Ben Johnson's quarterbacks coach in Detroit, I don't really know their name. He's probably the OC moving forward because that's just generally how offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators get promoted. Yeah. Then they just promote their guy right under them and they work together so that they don't have to relearn everything. DC, dude, DCs are plentiful at this point in this league. If you have Mike Vrabel out on the streets, if you have Eric Washington, Matt Eberflus will more than likely be a defensive coordinator somewhere in this league next year. It's unheard of that he would take a demotion and stick around here, which would be, for me, ideal. And we've talked about this. It's just never happened in NFL history. But Matt Eberflus is more than likely going to be a defensive coordinator somewhere in the league next year. So the defensive coordinators are plentiful.
To address this comment, is Poles likely to make any of these moves? I think he has to.
I think he's forced to at this point.
Yeah, he has to because the fact that they didn't even interview anybody during this offseason, and he really attached himself to the Matt Eberflus thing. Like Nick said, you probably have another year. And so we look at teams in this league and, we sat here patiently because they said, hey, we need to overturn this roster. This has to be done right. Patience, patience, patience. Okay. But during those 2 years, you didn't see much from Eberflus that showed you that he is going to elevate this roster. However, because you sat through it all, here's your actual shot. Now we have a good roster. Now we have a number one pick overall quarterback, and you just saw exactly the same thing, right? So you should have moved on a year sooner rather than a year later. But yeah, you what you really need is a guy that can come in here and get it done right away, and it's not unheard of. You don't need another 2 years or another 3 years. You look at the situation that Houston was in. Same situation as us. A year later, they're a playoff team. And we're making excuses for losing to them because they're a playoff team. You look at Washington at the beginning of this year, same situation as us. Where are they at now? Where are we at now? This thing does not take that long to be able to turn around. And so that's what you're going to need to do.
And that's kind of to me, one of the prerequisites of whoever the hell you're hiring needs to have some semblance of an identity. And it's because I don't expect a massive roster turnover with whoever the hell you're hiring as the next head coach, but you'll see some, as you should. You need to have a coach who brings in guys. When we joke about Jim Harbaugh taking over the Chargers, and then I remember it was a funny story. Coming out of training camp where they kept one of their backup offensive linemen, some sort of 6'3" ginger kid who was like 380 pounds as their fullback. And that's just like an indicative sign of Jim Harbaugh's personality, what his philosophy is. We're going to run the shit out of this ball. We're going to barely throw. When we do throw, it's going to be explosive. And Justin Herbert is playing like top 5 quarterback in the league right now. He is completely the opposite of what Justin Herbert we've been used to as fans. We've been used to Justin Herbert's 50 throws a game, 45 catches, 500 yards. Now this guy is a game manager. This is a totally different team and a totally different philosophy. So if Ben Johnson comes in, you better run the ball. None of this trickery. That's why Ben Johnson kind of scares me, because Ben Johnson has been given this incredible roster, and he gets to do this crazy stuff with Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra and 2 running backs, and he gets to do this stuff. He's earned that right. If he brings that here, it's not going to work. You got to simplify, man. You have to. Kevin Stefanski knows what he's doing. He ran the shit out of the ball for years in Cleveland. That's why Nick Chubb is relevant, because Nick Chubb ran the shit out of the ball. It's a running team with a running identity, defense first. Kevin Stefanski kind of rolls right in. So that's why, to me, it's much more about, that's why I said to Nick before he left, and you need to fire Eberflus and start this next step of the process as soon as possible. Start gauging interest. Start seeing who wants to coach here. Start seeing what kind of players they're into. Start building your offseason that way, right? If you hire Kevin Stefanski, hire him as soon as possible, and then have him help you in free agency. Have him help you in the draft. I don't know what else to say. It's to me, it's been since last week that it was a foregone conclusion. And if it's anything less than that to anyone else, I don't know what to tell you. If you think Flus deserves another chance or he should be back, I can't help you.
Prometheus asks a great question. Is there any scenario that Flus isn't fired? Sure. The chances of that scenario actually playing out, I mean, go get yourself a lotto ticket. You're more likely to win millions of dollars than, having happen what needs to happen here for Flus to keep his job. Sure, though, if the Bears sit there and dominate the division, if they make the playoffs and this and that, there'll be a scenario you could create that keeping Eberflus here is the right thing. But the chances of that happening, and that's what we were talking about last year, it's like there's always a chance, right? In fact, the only reason that the Bears are in any kind of position that they are in now is because they didn't shoot themselves in the foot in the beginning of the year like they did last year. Last year, they went 0-4. This year, we managed to rack up some type of wins early on. And, and we kept saying it's not going to be about the record this year. It's going to be about the eye test. When you look at it from an eye test perspective, I mean, listen, record-wise, this team's 4-4. It's not the worst spot to be in. But the eye test tells you it is falling apart at an extremely quick rate, right, David? This is, this isn't going to get better. And say it does. Say for some reason you happen to patch things up and string together some wins and whatever, what it's going to do is it's going to rear its head right back at you in the playoffs when it matters most. And you will lose a playoff game due to poor coaching. And then what? Is there any scenario that Flus isn't fired? Sure. But more likely than not, he's fired. And what should happen is he should get fired tomorrow, and what should have happened is he should have been replaced over last offseason.
To just kind of address that kind of comment is Houston Texans draft picks in 2019. Nick Caserio was hired in 2019. Nick Caserio is their current GM from the Patriots. The first major move he did was trade Deshaun Watson. In 2020, when he got taken, 2020, none of the players really made an impact. They had Jonathan Greenard, who's still on the team, not a major player. 4th round pick was Charlie Heck, offensive tackle. 2020 was earliest they had was a 2nd round pick was Ross Blacklock, not a major pass rusher on the team still. In 2021, they were so depleted that in 2021 they had a 5th round pick first. So no, that's not true. They have less things that we could have done with 2022 or 2020, 2021. If you want to argue that it was 2022, 2023, sure. They started to really pick up steam with those picks they got from Cleveland, but they're in the exact same timetable. Their rebuild started in 2022. When did our rebuild start? 2022. It's the exact same timetable.
What it boils down to, and as much as I like Ryan Poles, at the end of the day, we don't pretend to be the smartest people here. I did not like Jaden Daniels. In fact, I think he was my third or fourth down the list. I like Drake May over him, but at the end of the day, you have a situation where you pass up CJ Stroud, and now you pass up Jaden Daniels, and both those quarterbacks are out there performing better than whatever you have. And you had the chance to have them. And so what I always credit is the quarterback. And I think that makes so much of a difference. And it's just, here we go again. We have the number 1 overall pick in Caleb, and he's supposed to be this, he's supposed to be that. We understand quarterback growth and everything like that. But at the end of the day, the result is the result. Whatever reasons or excuses you want to come up with why it's not working, at the end of the day, all that matters is it doesn't look like it's working. And man, I don't want to sit here and ruin another quarterback. I really don't. Like, you need to, the fact that he left him out there till the end of the game just shows you the incompetence of situational football by Matt Eberflus. You're going to just get this kid killed and ruin it. And why not cut the cord early? You know what I mean? Why not just admit your mistakes, cut the cord early? Like you said, David, at this point, anybody else would be better off than Matt Eberflus for the rest of the year, because it's not happening. It's just not happening this year, period. So why repeat it? I don't know.
It's part of Ryan Poles' biggest issues is not cutting the cord earlier than he should, right? And that's one of the biggest criticisms we've had since Chase Claypool, is that he's just not cutting cords sooner than he should. Velus Jones took until week 7 this year to be cut. He should have been traded away in training camp. The fact that you could have even gotten something for Velus Jones was a miracle. So, yeah, it's Claypool, it's Nate Davis, it's Velus Jones, now it's Matt Eberflus, it's Luke Getsy. It's an absolute catastrophe. And that's why, for once, and I saw this comment early on, and I don't remember who said it, but you should basically be doing everything that makes the McCaskies uncomfortable. You should be hiring Kyle Shanahan and giving him full control and free reign. You should be hiring Kevin Stefanski and telling him that you need to tell us to shut the fuck up. But it's a highly unlikely probability, because that's what the McCaskies are. That's what Ryan Poles has been kind of coached to do. And whether, the Ian Wheeler thing in Hard Knocks was cute and it was sensitive and it was nice and he likes the guy. It's a cold fucking league, man. It's a cold league with a results-based business. It's, if you don't win, get the fuck out. So I need Matt Eberflus gone yesterday. I need him gone as soon as possible. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about one more thing, David, from the game at least.
Yeah.
After getting the safety, or us, having a safety, they come out and they do like this onside punt.
So it's a free kick that you need to do after every safety that's been executed. It's a free kick. I think it was one of the worst free kicks I've ever seen. So it's just
everybody in Arizona just called for a fair catch.
Yeah.
What the hell was that?
That's a well-coached special teams, knowing that when you signal for a free catch on a bad free kick, anybody who interferes with that free kick will be penalized. So all you need to do once you call for that free catch, or that fair catch, if that ball hits the ground and rolls to a stop, no matter where it stops, that's your ball, because you called for the fair catch. That's a well-coached special teams.
So here we are again. So we were trying to catch them off guard, thinking we're going to be smarter than they are.
I don't think so. I think that's just Torrey Taylor not being used to free kicks.
Oh, so it was an actual physical mistake. What, did he have to kick it shorter?
No, I can't say that for sure. Free kicks are just harder to do after a safety. That's kind of like, it's the 2-part.
What was our plan there? Like, say it goes our way. What? How?
You free kick it to the 40-yard line because that's the best you can do after a safety. A safety is a double-edged sword where you get the safety, you lose 2 points, plus you got to give the ball back in a disadvantageous situation.
But it's not because a kickoff. It's a punt.
It's called a free kick. Yeah, it's essentially a punt that's snapped to you, or like you hold onto it, and it's a double disadvantageous situation.
Okay. Weird.
It's something that a bad team is just not coached on. It's something that a bad team is just not talked about, and their priorities were probably all fucked up. And yeah, it's just probably poor execution from special teams and the Bears because that's what they're do. That's what
And
they
then
do.
last thing before we cut this thing is I kind of want to just touch on DJ Moore. There was a play where he literally
Oh, I don't want to hear
walked
about
off
that.
the
He's
field.
hurt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, was it due to injury or what?
That guy's just
And
playing.
just
He's a warrior. He's been playing through everything.
man, this is ugly.
The more than anything right now, like you want to talk about people getting frustrated and injuries, like injuries are starting to accumulate. And honestly, I don't feel like injuries can be blamed on anything coaching wise because it's just usually even like a team like the Niners are just injured all the time, right? Because even though they're well coached, they just have glass players that get hurt all the time. I feel like some of the Bears issues are because of just being put in bad situations and being forced to play in situations in ways that they're not used to. Because sure, Jaquan Brisker, you could say freak accident. Kyler Gordon, freak accident. The defensive side. Braxton Jones is asked to do so much from his position and not being helped in any way, shape, or form. Darnell Wright at this point is being asked to do so much. And this offensive line, I mean, has like 6 injuries across the board at this point. You're just asking too much from these guys. And these guys are gonna get hurt and they're gonna keep getting hurt until you put them in situations where they get to do things they're good at and they're used to, which is run downhill, block, pass protect in situations where they know they can be successful. I don't think that injuries are something that you can attribute to coaching or scheme, but I don't think it's not something you can attribute to coaching or scheme. I think the coaching and the scheme is absolutely atrocious, and we've given tons of examples of teams where their third, second offensive linemen are all on the field and they're still doing just fine, and these guys are not. And even when they were with their starters, they were not doing well. And now you have their backups in, and some of them do better and some of them do worse, and it's just it's all bad. The scheming is so piss poor. You're using Keenan Allen in all the wrong ways. You're using Rome Odunze in all the wrong ways. You're using DJ Moore in all the wrong ways. DeAndre Swift would arguably be the best used player on this team. I don't think Caleb Williams is being used the right way. I also think that Caleb Williams is starting to genuinely show issues with a deep ball. I think that is, if I had to be critical of Caleb Williams in any way, shape, or form right now, I think his deep ball accuracy sucks. Other than that, I think it's mostly coaching and scheming.
Yeah, he definitely has shown some pretty bad misses when it comes to the deep throws, and it's unfortunate. It really is. I think another thing that I see is like, Caleb doesn't want to run. He wants to be a pocket passer. We're forcing him situation after situation for him to scramble out to the sideline. And then you know what he could do. Right before he goes out of bounds, he could try and get a play off, try and throw that ball. This stuff needs to be once in a while in a clutch moment. Yet here we are like leaning on it, play after play after play after play, to make him, resort to his, I don't know, to the things that's supposed to make him special. It's not special when it's like necessary play after play, and I don't know, the whole thing is just going so bad in so many ways. Yeah,
I think part of that problem is that DJ Moore is forcing himself to play hurt, because I have not seen a fourth receiver on this team yet other than DeAndre Carter, and he's only playing because he's also on special teams. Tyler Scott is irrelevant. There is no other fourth or fifth receiver on this team. Colin Johnson was a cute training camp story. There's just no depth. There's no drafting. There's no nothing. It's all poorly planned, poorly executed, and there's no, you got the Rams, and Demarcus Robinson has like 5 or 6 touchdowns, and he caught a game-winning touchdown with one hand from Matthew Stafford yesterday. Demarcus Robinson, after Puka Nacua got ejected. There's a plan there. There's execution. There's guys that know what their jobs are, and that's just not what this is. Like we said, we're not going to do this prediction yet, but we may as well. I have no confidence. I have zero. I found out that the line against the Bears and the Patriots was plus 7.5 in favor of the Bears against the Patriots. In what world? I took that bet yesterday. I bet on the Patriots that even if the Bears win, it's not by 7, 8 points. It's lucky by 3. So
Definitely. And yeah, we're just gonna leave the show with this. And like, it's weird because once again, it feels like we're kicking a dead horse here. But I will pitch this to everybody in chat, anybody who watches this. We recently posted a video where it's just all of our Matt Eberflus talks going back to October of 2023. And it's just been so consistent. And it just sucks that we had to let it get to this point for other people to kind of get on board with it, because this move should have been done during this offseason. And that's what concerns me about Ryan Poles. It's like, man, we're leaning on desperation here. We're like desperate to win and this and that. And that's why the plug should be pulled. All these expectations should go away, right? If you're trying to build anything moving forward. But yeah, we're going to run these guys out there till they die out there. And it sucks. It really does. And we should have been a step ahead. Instead, we're a step behind. And, just like Matt Eberflus told them, hey, I let them know the score. We have each other.
Man.
We have each other. Yeah, that's what this,
listen,
that's what these guys are playing for.
Comments.
That's what these guys are playing for. They're playing for having each other. No, God damn it, they're playing for a paycheck. And what gives them a paycheck? Good stats, wins, being a damn good team. You're not, like I was telling my coworker, like with Nagy here, you think the motivation was club dub? You think I want to win so we could go to the locker room and have rainbow colored strobe lights? Because that's what's motivating me to win. These are grown ass men. You know what I mean?
Hey, we may not be the biggest YouTube channel ever, but you know what, Paulie? We have each other.
We have each other, David.
We have each other.
Good night, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Take care.
That was super gay.
That's right.
Peace out, everybody. Have a good night.